Good evening. Welcome to the Queen Anne's County Board of Education work session for February the 10th, 2021. We stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members, you've had a chance to look at the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We have approval of the minutes for February the 3rd, both open and closed. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Yep. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we're into discussion. 201, Edmund contract.
Great, so we're going to talk about the Edmentum contract as a continuation from last board meeting. Ms. Towers, our CFO, is joining us along with Mr. Kentop, who is our program manager for Arise, but also does our summer learning programs and digital programs. And he also is our digital learning connection to Edmentum. I believe that we have Mr. Mark Mazek on the phone, and he will call in. We wanted to share with you some data with regard to how we are using Edmentum. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Towers and Mr. Kentop.
You want me to do what I was doing, or do you want to talk about the data?
No, not the
Okay.
data.
Okay. So I first, President Smith, Dr. Kane, members of the board, I want to extend an apology to Ms. Towers and to you all last week. I didn't know I should have been here putting that together. I could have probably answered your questions for you then, so I'm here tonight to kind of clarify those questions for you. Last week, you had asked several questions, and I have written them down and given you some answers for them. There was first question was about the yellow sheet from last year's contract, and it said on the yellow sheet from June of 2020 through August of 2021, and now the contract this year says from July 2021 to June 2022. So there was a clarification needed on that. The first clarification is the yellow sheet from last year, if you actually look at the contract underneath of it, the contract underneath of it stated from May of 2020 until June of 2021. So there was an error when the yellow sheet was created last year, a mistake when those numbers were put on that first one. I spoke with Ms. Dubois about that. She went back and looked at the record. She thought it was 14 months starting in June, but there was nothing ever anywhere written on that, and the assumption just it was an error in making that sheet. So our contract does go until June of this year. The $2,000 credit that you would ask about on that, we weren't receiving a $2,000 credit because of an error in that contract from last year. It actually has something to do with our Ed Options program that we used with them last summer, and I'll explain that in a couple minutes as to why we're getting a credit. The questions were also asked last week if this was a flat amount or if it's per student. There were numbers thrown around like 7,500. The number on here is 6,030, and then 1,574 for a younger group. This is a flat cost for the Edmentum. They used the number that they had put on last year's projection to show how many licenses it was, but regardless of what it is, the number is the $68,000 number. If we get an influx this year of a couple hundred students that come back into the system, we don't pay any more. They're just included in that. We pay for grades 3 through 12 for the $68,000. The kindergarten through second grade licenses are then given to us free. So to answer the question, we won't go up or down based on any enrollments. That's a flat number for that contract. There was a question about how many students participated in the Exact Path program last summer. We had over 600 students who were involved in it at one point or another. Their involvement was individual, so I can't tell you that they all completed a certain amount, but there were 600 students that were involved in the program. And President Smith, I think you asked, are we looking at an 80% usage? And this school year in the first semester, we're looking at about an 84% usage in the Exact Path program so far. So just to clarify, Edmentum is the parent program. The Exact Path that we're paying for, you kind of know how we use that. We use that in several ways for universal mitigation. Dr. Kane related to that about last year and this year. But we also use it as an instructional piece right now when students are like asynchronous. Teachers can assign them to work in it. It's very individualized. Teachers are using it this year as part of their SLOs for evaluations, the data that comes from the Exact Path data. And this year we used it for the kindergarten reading readiness assessment that we have to do that's a COMAR regulation. So all those pieces from Exact Path are what we've used this year and look to use again next year. The other parts in this contract, though, that need to be highlighted are the courseware licenses that we get to use for secondary schools. And there is no charge for them when we have an Edmentum Exact Path contract. Last summer, we utilized Edmentum's courseware, and this school year, we've used it for high school students. They can take courses for original credit, for credit recovery, and we've even created some custom booster courses to help the students who are struggling this year. Edmentum itself has 106 courses that have been approved by MSDE for virtual credit. So of the ones that they have, 106 have been approved. And do you mind if I take this off? No. My glasses are getting all fogged up on me. They have 106 courses that have been approved, so we can use them for blended or virtual learning for students to have original credit, but we also use it for the credit recovery and for these booster. And right now we have 450 students, or 450 course enrollments this year so far that we've used for this option, either boosters or credit, original credit or credit recovery. So that's a very significant part of our high school program, helping students to recoup credits if they need to after they maybe weren't successful in a course, or in this case this year, while they're still in a course, to help them boost their skills. The other thing we took advantage of this year is what's called flex assignments. And teachers in the high school, and next year we're looking to expand it to middle school, have the ability when they're teaching to go into one of these classes. So say I'm a biology teacher. I can go into the Edmentum biology class and look at what their online course looks like, and I can find activities or things in their lessons that I can just pull out singular activities and use it as a resource while I'm teaching. And I can assign it to all my students. So it is another curriculum resource that's available for students and teachers, basically secondary 6 through 12. Now, I don't have exact numbers on how many are using that right now, because that's something we're still training people on how to use, but that's another powerful educational tool that teachers can use that comes as part of this contract. Now, the one piece I want to clarify is that $2,000 credit on this contract. Last year, we used their program called Ed Options, and what that did, that allowed us to do is we could assign our students to Edmentum's teachers over the summer, and Edmentum's teachers oversaw the program. There was a cost to that per student. It was a grant funded. We used grant money for that. Last summer, Edmentum had a lot of struggles in the Ed Options category because they got overwhelmed with everybody in the world trying to find an online program to work with students on. Their student information system was too small. They had to completely change and get a new SIS system. They didn't have enough staff, teachers, because they had so many systems around the world and the country that were trying to get in there and use this. So the experience wasn't the best experience, and Mark, I know, is on the call with us. Him and I talked a lot about that, and he knew that wasn't our best experience. We had a lot of students involved, but we had 132 students who had the opportunity to be involved with that, but it didn't go as smoothly as it could have, and we probably didn't get the most out of it. So that's where the $2,000 credit came from. He gave that back and said if we want to use it for some specific Ed Options, not as a major program, but he wanted to give us a credit back on some of that because it wasn't so successful last year. So I just wanted to kind of clarify some of those things and give you some of the numbers for usage of what we're doing right now, and then answer any additional questions that you might have.
Would Mark be available to speak to the
I think he's on there.
data that's been collected and that he shared with us?
Can you hear us?
Mark, can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So first of all, thank you for letting me join. I am your local consultant for the past 6 years. I'm a former administrator from Scranton, Pennsylvania, where I used Edmentum Solutions when I was in the district. I currently live in Rehoboth Beach, not too far from you. So I imagine that the data, and maybe Mr. Kintop or Dr. King could clarify that if you have the information, the data that I shared with the color code, green and yellow lines.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
So you all have that you're looking at?
We don't have it on the screen, but we have access to it.
Can I share my screen with them?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, go ahead.
I'll do that right now. And just give me a shout when you see that.
Okay, you're up.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I do want to just kind of scratch the surface because your district does have great usage. Mr. Kintock did a great job of explaining the use of the program and the different types of programs that are embedded within the district. The bottom line, we're just going to go from top to bottom. The total number of students that are in the program are 7,199 students. So that means they're in the system. Do all students access and use it? Probably not, but in regards to the total amount in, that's what's in the system right now. When we look at the Diagnostic 1 and Diagnostic 2, and just to kind of give you some quick background, students take a diagnostic test, and then they receive a learning path based on the results of that test. So for Diagnostic 1 and Diagnostic 2, for math and reading, the numbers are there. We're not going to go through each line with the numbers, but you have great usage in regards to the students taking the assessment. And what I did was, since I'm a visual person, I kind of color-coded each line by grade level of positive growth being green and yellow being some growth, but not reaching the average growth. And not to get too deep here into the numbers, but we have an average growth measure because what happens is students are compared to other students that take this assessment in that grade level. So the green, which is awesome, are students that exceeded the typical growth measure. So for example, kindergarten, typical growth is 58 points. Your first grade students, rather, their growth was 73.9 points. So they're actually above the average growth bar. You'll also notice in the last column that not everybody has completed that diagnostic yet. So this is the second diagnostic. So they're currently still taking that diagnostic. We ran these numbers after last board meeting. I was on listening and I jumped right on it. And so I'm sure those numbers have increased in regard to the amount of who took the assessment. So you can kind of follow that chart going down. That's for math, of course. Green is, growth above the average. Yellow is growth that's very close to it. If you look at the reading section, you have more students who took the reading section, and you'll notice the growth in green as well, and yellow. And the last part of the graph is the learning path data. And this is more of averages of what students are doing within the learning path. The number of active students that are working in learning paths, the average time on task after students on the computer do nothing, they're actually working and completing modules, the average skills mastered, and average skills assessed. So all of those numbers are where they should be in regards to matching up to the diagnostic and usage for the total number of students using the program. I want to open it up for any questions.
Board members have any questions? I think we're okay right now.
And the one thing I'll add to that is the numbers that you see for the growth numbers, the average growth numbers that they compare to, are based on the history of students being in full school all the time. Like, they don't have data to be able to measure off of what happens when kids are home during a crisis like this. So for us to have numbers in the yellow and the green that we have right now is actually a strong sign, that we are making some progress with the kids even at a distance.
Thank you.
More questions? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you very much. But I think we do have an update to the yellow sheet. No update to the yellow sheet. Okay.
And that is because this is an action item later. Does the board have any questions? Because they're used to stay around. There's no questions right now?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mizek.
Thank you for being here.
Okay, moving on. 202-202, Clay Target Team update.
Good evening, President Smith, members of the board, and Dr. Kane. For the record, my name is Carla Pullen. I'm the interim chief operating officer and have been working on the Clay Target team. We have been honing in this week on the MOU. So along with the school's attorney, we are ready to share the draft with Mr. Burns, which should be coming to him soon if it hasn't already. Along with that MOU, we've decided that it would be good to devise some specific rules and procedures that are definitive to the clay target team. This is going to pull information from the athletic handbooks. It will pull from the U.S. Clay Target League, their policies and procedures. And it will pull from Sudlersville Skeet Club, from their rules and procedures as well. We're still awaiting those. There was a family emergency, so the person that we've been speaking with hasn't been able to get those to us yet, but they're forthcoming. It's also prompted us to take a look at our athletics handbook just to make sure that it's up to date as well. And then the beauty of these documents is they're going to be appropriate templates for us to utilize for all of our sports programs so that we can assure going forward this template is utilized, we have something consistent, and all of the programs are utilizing the same thing. So at this point, we'll be ready to share that document with Mr. Conley, the proposed coach, within the week, provided that Mr. Burns concurs with that information. We also believe that it'll be wise to have that MOU signed with any assistant coaches that would be proposed as well, along with Mr. Conley. And with that, I will open up to any questions that you may have about any of the activities that we've discussed or any of the new information.
How are we doing with insurance? Has that all been mopped up?
So we are still coordinating with MABE. So MABE has always given us the recommendations of what they would like to see based on the dollar thresholds that they would anticipate if in the event that there was a problem, it could potentially be catastrophic with this type of sport. They've always given us those guidelines. We have reached out to Sudlersville Skeet. We have looked at the U.S. Clay Target League, and they've been able to provide what they're able to provide. So at this point, the conversation with MABE has really turned to what is necessary. Are there umbrella policies that we need to look at? And so we're looking at those and pricing those. Is there additional coverage that the Board of Ed needs to provide to fill the gap of what is not going to necessarily be able to be provided by U.S. Clay Target League or from Sudlersville Skeet Club?
In a nutshell, I guess one of my concerns is there's not a time frame, but this thing is sign up for the spring, which is the end of this month, 1st of March. Insurance, I know we've been going over this for a while.
Yes.
Will insurance be taking care of that I'm just
Yes.
saying a week or something to
Yes.
get an answer so we can make some decisions on, yes, it will work or whatever?
Yes, so we absolutely can do that very quickly. But I will point out, and this is something that we're working to figure out all of these issues as quickly as possible. We do have through March 22nd to do the registration, and then their practices start April 3rd. So
March 22nd?
Yes, we can register through March 22nd. So we're still able to meet those guidelines, provided that we have everything decided within the next week or so.
So things pop up, but do you feel comfortable within a week? You can have the answer to the board and Dr. Kane to
Yes,
find out so we can move this
absolutely.
forward?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, we really appreciate the work you guys have all put into this. We've had a lot of questions, so thank you. Thank you for your time.
And one more question.
Sure.
So what MABE is doing is recommending what they would like to see, right? It's not a mandate. We're not required to have that.
No.
But and it's my understanding that there is a $400,000 cap if there is a lawsuit. Are you aware of that, or?
I am. I'm not sure how it's applicable here. So what with the logistics of that, I would prefer to get MABE's response on that and then bring that back to you.
Okay. And then right now, what do we know we have as an insured figure?
Again, the dollar amounts, I would want to speak directly with MABE because I think there are different parts of that come into play depending on the incident. If the question is what is the dollar amount per incident, then I can get that for you and provide it.
Okay. Well, just in the course of what you're doing already.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is still the two policies, is that correct? Sudlersville will have one with and will be
Correct.
another named.
Yes, so we would be named,
Insured.
yes, as well as with the U.S. Clay Target League. Correct.
And does this extra insurance get paid by the board or paid by the club?
That's something that we would have to determine.
And then who's responsible?
Exactly. Those.
If the
those
board
are-
is paying for it, then the board is liable.
Correct.
If the club is paying for it, then the club is liable.
Yes.
Okay.
But you feel comfortable, and I know it could go out, but next week, which is the 17th, we probably would have some firmer answers. March 22nd is the last day of registration, so if this gets done within the next week to 10 days, it looks like it's doable as long as all the dots get lined up.
Yes. Yes.
Feel comfortable with that, Dr. Kane?
Well, before I respond to that, I want to find out from Mr. Schiffinelli what he found out from your board attorney with regard to who has authority to make this decision.
Well, we have discussed it, and it's obviously, it's between the board and the attorney. I'd rather have the attorney discuss that with you, but putting on my own attorney hat and having read the statutes, I believe that it's within the board's jurisdiction. It's a new sports program, and part of the reasoning is because I understand that your responsibilities as superintendent pertain to two broad categories: day-to-day activities of the school, the curriculum, that sort of thing, and specifically, explicitly, it says day-to-day activities. The Sporting Clays Club would not be, I don't think, falls into the day-to-day activities of the student body, that kind of thing. Your other broad category is student-run organizations. For example, student government, maybe the student newspaper, something like that would be literally a student-run organization. This is something different. Like the football team is not a student-run organization. The students are the athletes, but the coaches, the adults are running the program. They're responsible for the program ultimately. So it would be the same thing with the Sporting Clays. That Mr. Connolly would be the coach. Obviously, he'd have some assistant coaches, as we go along. They would be coordinating activities, coordinating the shoots, the competitions, practice, and everything else. The students wouldn't be doing that themselves. So that's my perspective. I would rather have Darren talk.
Was that his perspective?
This is my perspective.
His perspective?
Well, I would rather have him address his perspective.
Because quite frankly, that is not the legal perspective. The superintendent has authority over that as a student activity. And if in fact it was a sport, then it would be governed by MPSSA, which it is not. So, and in regard to our policy 524, that puts the superintendent.
Well,
Well, let me take a look at what Darren.
Let me just interject something here. The board, I think, generally would like to see this go forward. We've done some research on it and everything. By all means, you're the superintendent, and hopefully we all can collaborate together to make this work.
We have been.
I understand. I'm saying
let's be
we all
clear.
collaborate together. So hopefully this can come as a consensus of everybody, and as you as superintendent can take it and not run with it, but take it and make it happen. I don't think anybody wants to take ownership of it as far as individual pride. I think we just need to work together.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with pride. I think that at this point it has to do with who makes the decision.
Well, that's why.
So according to the board attorney, the only reference to Dr. Kane's purview would be day-to-day activities of the schools, and this does not fit into a day-to-day activity
Why doesn't this fit into a day-to-day?
of the school. Pretty much like I just mentioned, it's not the entire student body that's involved in this. It's administered and run by adults, coaches. Football activities are not day-to-day activities of the student body. For example, curriculum and certain extracurricular.
And so are you
activities.
suggesting that the superintendent has no authority over the sports teams with the schools?
I think in the creation of a sports team, no. Were you the one that Or is the superintendent's job to say we're going to have a football team? Or is it the board?
In fact, if it is a new sport, there is a protocol for that.
And
If
where's
it's gonna
that?
be-
Because I asked you by email to
Go
please
through
provide that.
the Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association, MPSSAA. There is a protocol for having a new sport.
Okay, so
And
this is what I need to
not-
see.
And this is not one of them. And in addition, please do check our Queen Anne's County Policy 524 that outlines student organizations. And pertinent to this conversation, the superintendent or designee shall approve all student organizations, both school-sponsored and non-sponsored, within the school system.
Okay, that's why I emailed you a couple of weeks ago to please provide me what you're relying on.
And I
Because
know that
obviously
you
we've had
spoke
this
with
little
your board attorney
confrontation.
and your interpretation, and we agreed to disagree. Your interpretation was different, and I want to be sure that you had ample opportunity as an attorney by trade to look and see what you could find.
Right. Well, that's what I was interpreting what I had found. So that's why I asked you, what have you
So
found?
now
So I
you
can look
you
at
got
that
it,
too.
yeah.
But,
Yeah.
That's
but
great.
let me be clear. Mr. Ciavelli is an attorney by trade, but he is a board member, not acting as any attorney up here at this level.
That is absolutely 100% correct.
So he has his opinion, and I respect it. I respect your opinion. I hope that we can sit there and work, because I think this is something that would be unique to Queen Anne's County, would be good to work forward if we can get the proper insurance and stuff like that. I hope little pitfalls don't get involved with this. I think we should all just try to work together. I'm not
I
trying
think,
to.
yeah, go finish what you were
I'm not
saying.
trying to undermine you. I don't think any board member is trying to. I mean, some more people are passionate about this, and I just want to hopefully all 5 work together.
I'm not-
6 of us.
Yes. I'm not so sure that there is not some undermining going on, but to be clear, we have been absolutely collaborative. We have done all of the research, and we found that we can use some of this information in other areas where it has been lax, and there have not been.
This could be a
MOUs.
positive thing for many ways, both upping our game as far as policies and hopefully getting this, if it works out, insurance-wise and policy-wise, to get it on. And one of my major concerns is, and I've, not right now, but in other things, working with the county on different regulations, I just want to, we have a time frame, and you're saying March the 22nd. We have time to do our due diligence, get this through, collaborate together, work together, and make this work, if it can work. If you can get back to us within 7 to 10 days, we'll get this, and then hopefully, as a group, all 6 of us, 5 board members and the superintendent, can work on to move this thing forward.
Okay, and one more request. If you could please email me the protocol and the other policies that you're talking about, at least the references to them where I can find them, because I did ask you, I haven't got it.
Maryland Public Secondary Schools Athletic Association, the acronym is MPSSAA,
Yep.
and Policy 524. You can take a look at those.
Okay. Protocol or policy?
Policy 524, Queen Anne's County Policy
Queen Anne's County
524.
policy, all right.
Student organization.
All right, and I'll take a look at those, and if you can keep doing that, I'd like to get a vote next week, and then we can hash
If it
out.
comes to a vote, because I'm not so certain that it comes to a
Well,
vote.
it might not need a vote. Hopefully,
Exactly.
it can get worked out, and it can be moved forward with.
If that is what happens, we will see. We can continue to prolong it or
I don't
not.
want, we can prolong it, but I don't want to just prolong it just to prolong it to miss something. I think we need to act on it and hopefully get
Agreed.
good information that's accurate, and hopefully we can move this, because I think it's opportunity. I think one of the things that, a lot of children or students be involved in this that aren't necessarily physically athletes. They can do a lot of things. So I think it gives us one more opportunity to get another group of students involved in our thing. So
Very inclusive.
I think we need to work on this.
Big thing.
End the discussion right now, and we'll move on with the caller. Thank you for your information, and we'll be looking forward to you next week.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. And I do also want to say, because I wasn't done with my comment, Mr. Smith, that I think that it is not as simple as a collaboration here, because we absolutely have been collaborating, but the issue is the decision. So we need to be clear about that.
And Dr. Kane, it's I think it's clear that you're opposed to creating the organization. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
And can I ask why?
Not
It's
really,
always-
not at this point. Well, actually,
It's
yes,
always-
you can,
whenever
because
there's-
it's always good for the public to understand. One, I think that at this point in time, we've heard parent after parent after parent talk about the mental condition of children, the mental health of children. And for us to think about putting guns in the hands of children right now, if a parent wants to put a weapon in the hand of their child, that is absolutely their prerogative. I do not believe that it has to be associated with the school district in order for them to do that. Nothing prohibits a parent from doing what they want to do. There is a fee involved. Nothing prohibits a parent from doing what they want to do to have their children engage with weapons. That is a culture, and I completely understand that. But I do not see it fitting with a public school district.
All right, I appreciate that.
You are more than welcome.
All right.
Okay, moving on. Opening of schools, 2-03.
I'll ask Ms. Pullen to come on back up, and Ms. Bass. We don't have another presentation because we're moving forward with exactly what we started talking about or continued talking about last week. We are, I'll let Ms. Pullen talk, but we are prepared for our students. We met with principals today. There was not issue with anything in regard to starting with our hybrid plan. But as I said that we have talked to principals about pulling our teams back together to look at full-day hybrid schedules so that they are aware that we're going to be looking at that, as I said that they would. So, Ms. Pullen, what updates do you have for us?
So I can tell you that transportation worked very diligently today to get all of the bus routes out to contractors in the event that we have inclement weather the next 2 days. So the bus drivers will be taking those routes, they'll be riding them, they will be looking at times, they'll be figuring out how the cleaning of their buses play into that, and then they will be calling all students this weekend so they know what their anticipated times are for the start on the 16th.
The bus drivers are going to call each student?
Yes.
So
Yes, they call the parents for
our
each of
contract
their
bus
students.
drivers, which are majority of our bus drivers, are going to call, and I guess it's the same bus routes are the same as last year. So if you had, whoever, Mr. Smith, whoever, you had the same one as next year. So
Yes,
they know
for
that.
the most part, that's the
Okay.
case. Now, if you recall, we will only have one student per seat on every bus, so those routes may have changed slightly as well as the drivers, but the students and the schools have been in communication with the parents throughout this entire time, so they know of the changes and they're already aware.
When will those bus drivers be calling the parents?
It will depend based on the LLC's direction, so they've spoken with their contract drivers, but it should be any time between now and Monday evening.
Okay. Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
I'm a parent, and I don't have a call on Friday. And my daughter's and son sitting there, what's going on? I don't get one Saturday. I don't get one Sunday. People get nervous.
Sure.
Who can, and don't give them my number, because I don't know, but who can they call to find out who should be calling them or something, because Monday's a holiday.
Yes.
And, it's just the last minute, some child getting on the bus, knowing what time. I think parents need to have a little bit of window, and if they don't have that window, and by, let's say, Monday or something, who could they call to say, I haven't called, can somebody please call me? I know it's a holiday, so I don't know how we're going to handle that.
Sure. So if you recall, most of this communication already happened in November as well. So when we were preparing for our hybrid start, a lot of this information was disseminated to families. But with that, if there is any question and someone hasn't received that information from their driver, the first point of contact would be the school. So contact your school. The school will be able to tell them who the driver is and will be able to give them contact information. The second point of contact can be the transportation office here at the Board of Ed. We can certainly put them in touch with the driver as well as give them the preliminaries on the times and what we anticipate. So if there are any questions.
Okay, but after Friday at 5 or 6 o'clock, when everybody goes home,
Right.
you're not going to get a hold of the school. You're not going to get a hold of the transportation department. It could be Tuesday morning when we're supposed to be picking up kids. That's what bothers me with these LLCs are good, but somebody doesn't call them. all of a sudden Sunday, Monday, they don't get a call, there's going to be no way for the parents to call.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm just, you know, did the parents, do most of these parents know what bus are picking them up in their drivers? Or, I mean,
Yes, that information has already gone out, and this would be the second time that that has gone out. So the only discrepancy that could potentially occur is if the request has been made to switch the AA or BB days, some of that information may have changed. But again, that's something that the school has already been in touch with all of those parents and families about.
So what I would suggest is that if there is a parent who, as of the time that they see this broadcast, if they are unsure, they still have tomorrow and Friday to contact the school so that we can get it clarified for them.
that's what I would suggest highly, that if you feel uneasy and you don't know what's what's with this thing, call by at least noon on Friday so we have time to react, both from the principal's aspect or the transportation, because after 4 or 5 o'clock, there won't be anybody around.
Yes.
Okay,
That
so
would be
people
helpful.
really need to get out there and, if they have a question about transportation, call your principal Friday and get that done, because Monday is a holiday.
Yes.
Another thing I got to mention too is social, make sure you're socially responsible, because we have worked tirelessly on cleaning these schools and doing things. If your children have a fever or any symptoms of this COVID, we need to keep them home, because it could be a real quick problem if we start having issues, and parents have to be very diligent about what they're doing when they send their kids, because we're cleaning, we're doing this, but it's going to put a lot more pressure on our system if parents don't pay attention to this too.
On symptoms of anything, pink eye,
Right.
strep throat, because when you weaken the immune system with something, it opens the door for everything else. So if they're sick with anything, they need
Err
to
on the
stay
side of caution.
I just want
Okay.
to,
Any other questions?
Yeah, just questions and actually a couple comments. We're still talking about schools reopening and how that's going. So I did have the pleasure to be with Dr. Kane and Helen, Miss Bennett, yesterday at the Sudlersville Elementary School, and we made a tour. We were probably there for about 2 hours. It was extremely informative. Mr. Tom Walls, the principal, took us around. We talked to him probably for an hour on all kinds of things, from logistics, practical matters, some abstract matters. And we were there during lunchtime, so we saw how the kids were behaving extremely well and coming in, getting their lunches, either taking them back to their classrooms or eating there with their, social distance, but still being able to talk and communicate with Mr. Walls, who they seem to adore, and the other teachers. Mr. Walls, I got to give credit where credit's due. Mr. Walls has got an excellent can-do attitude, and more importantly, his teachers and staff do as well. I was very, very impressed. And he talked about, I mentioned logistics. I know we're about to go into the budget review here. He said more than anything, I asked him about his wish list and his needs list, and he said there's nothing on his wish list. There's one teacher that he needs, 4th grade teacher, on his must-have list. And so as we go along through the budget, I'd like everybody to keep that in mind. If we can figure out somehow to get Sudlersville Elementary another 4th grade teacher. They've been going full-time hybrid since we have come back to class. They haven't had any issues. It looks to me like they've got things worked out safely, including lunch and that kind of thing. I commend Dr. Kane, because we had come to a decision about March 1st being the target date to reopen half-day hybrid for all the schools. It's my understanding, it seems like you're on track to do that much earlier, right? A couple weeks earlier, February 16th, I think is the date.
February 16th.
I'd like to make a motion that we identify a date for a full-time hybrid reopening when the schools transition from their part-time to full-time. I'm suggesting March 8th, but I'd like to put that up for discussion and see if we can come to a date. I think it's important that we have a full-time date.
Is that a motion?
I would move-
Is that a motion?
Well, the motion is to that the schools return, or that the schools implement a full-time hybrid schedule on March 8th, 2021.
Okay, I would need a second for any discussion. Does anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
Okay. We'll open this for discussion. My opinion is we haven't even gotten our schools back in hybrid for the 16th yet. And I think our direction with Dr. Kane is that we will try to get it open more as we go the whole time. I have a real problem on the setting a date that's, I don't know if it's obtainable. I mean, we got transportation things, Summersville, and I don't know enough about it. I'm not going to get Carl into this, but just from what I've heard, and please somebody tell me when I'm off base. The tier system of our transportation, I don't know if it could handle that, because in Summersville, it's a smaller group, but you just get on Canal or Centerville, I don't know if we could do that, so there'd be too many obstacles in our way. I think if any school can do it, and we can get to transportation, then we move forward as soon as we can, and I think that's been the direction, and I think even Dr. Kane's agreed to that, but I would have a concern, we don't know, I mean, there's so many things we don't even know, we're not even back on our full hybrid yet until the 16th. I think that can be a discussion in the future, but I don't know, setting a date, it'd be premature in my opinion. But that's my 2 cents. Other members?
I think we need to see how the half-day hybrid works first to see if numbers continue to come down, if we have any outbreaks in the school, let teachers get comfortable with the current cleaning and PPE, because there's still a lot of worry and fear for those who have not been in the buildings. Give them time to get comfortable and into a groove again, and see if anything happens that needs to be, we need to take time and correct and fix before we move, and let these teams who are working on a full-day hybrid schedule do the work.
Point of order. Point of order.
Go ahead.
Let everybody have one, and then
Thank you,
then we'll have rebuttal.
Mr. Smith. Point of order that everyone has to speak.
Yeah, you
Thank
go
you.
ahead, Tammy.
I didn't realize.
So, yeah, thank you. So, following along with Ms. Morissette, not everyone's been vaccinated yet. We need to have time to get everyone vaccinated with their second round. Again, this has to happen organically. We can't force a date. We have tried 3 times to force a date on this school system, and it just didn't work. We need to work with the people in our system, not against them. That's my point.
Helen?
And I just want to say that I know that Dr. Kane had said last week that she was going to get back with her executive team, and we're going to work on that full-day hybrid. So, I trust that it's moving along. And I, too, was so impressed with Suttersville Elementary, and just, it was just a can-do. This is where Mr. Walls kept saying it over and over. He said, all of our teachers said, this is where we're needed. Our kids need us to be back, in the classroom. And it was so nice to see, oh my goodness, the kids were so excited. Of course, Mark's fluent Spanish made a big hit in many of the classrooms. And he was a little celebrity over there, but we appreciated the tour that Dr. Kane set up for us. And so I think we're moving along. And I think it will take a while for the teachers to get used to it. I mean, it was really very cool to see the teachers in their classroom there. That was just seamless. They were on their computers, talking to their, a couple of them had 1 or 2 students virtual, and they're doing their little numbers and they're answering, and they did it so well of just engaging their in-person people and their virtual people, and that probably took them a little bit of time to just make it seamless, because it seems super easy watching them. And Mr. Walls made sure that we knew that it wasn't that simple initially, and they've just kind of gotten on it. So I trust that we're moving forward, and very excited about getting the kids back in, because those children were happy. They looked very happy to be in school, and I was not that happy when I was in school. So.
They were very happy.
Yes.
So my position is that if we can open up by the 15th or 16th, as Dr. Kane is projecting, we're all working towards.
Just to make sure, the 16th, because
The
15th is a
16th,
holiday.
I'm sorry.
16th, I just wanted the public to get confused.
Sure.
16th, so we're opening it up.
All right, 16th. And we're on track. We're ahead of schedule. My position is that if we set a date that everybody can work toward, then they'll do that. Maybe it's just my, method from the military, whatever, but you have time constraints, you got time restraints, kind of thing that you want to put out there for people as to guide on. It's 3 weeks after the 16th, 3 weeks or so. It's more than 1 week after the March 1st opening date that was the target. I think there's ample time to have 3 weeks of half-day hybrid, which will give time to work the bugs out and to get some planning done for a full-day hybrid. They've had, I think they were given the order back in the summer to come up with a full-day hybrid program. Of course, the only one that did was Sothersville Elementary.
No, they were not, to be clear, they were not given an order to come up with a full-day hybrid. We planned for a hybrid, and the full-day issue is something that has come up recently.
All right, then I retract that. I thought there was a request out there to provide, make a plan. But in any case, if we're going to wait too long, then it's going to be the middle of April and middle of May and graduation. So, it's going to be more than a year that these kids haven't been in school. Even at the half-day hybrid, they're in school for literally 1 day out of 5, in a week, in-person learning. So that's all I got to say.
And Dr. Kane, February the 16th, we're starting with our AB hybrid schedule. Suttersville is a little unique. It's doing something a little different, and I think all schools, in my opinion, are working to open up as much as they can if it's suitable with your thing. So we're working that. The motion on the floor from Mr. Chavanelli is to do this March the 8th. Open up that. So I think what we're going to have to do is have a roll call on this motion. Ms. Wright?
Please answer when I call your name. Mr. Cipollone?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
No.
Ms. Bennett?
No.
Ms. Harper?
No.
Ms. Morissette?
No.
I have 4 negative and 1 affirmative.
At this time, the motion doesn't carry.
All right.
Okay. Opening of schools. Any other?
Just to give you a quick update that food service meal plan is on schedule. We will be doing the grab-and-go meals for both breakfast and lunch. PPE is stocked. We have reserves. It is available in every classroom, as well as cleaning supplies. And as you heard last week, athletics are on target to start this Saturday.
And right now we've got a good supply. I know you've talked about burn rates, but we've got a good supply of what we think. You'll reassess that after a week or something, or
Yes.
next first day probably of doing that, to make sure that we are up, and each school has its own thing there.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or things?
As far as PPE classes that may have a little more personal contact with students, have they been trained to the full extent with all the PPE, the shields, the gloves, if
Yes.
they're changing diapers, doing feeding tubes?
Yes, trained, as well as we have both the PPE coordinator and the nursing staff at each school that's able to assist with any questions about PPE use. There's a document that's available to everyone within the district that outlines what type of PPE should be utilized for what type of situation. So, yes.
So your general classroom, just to get a visual, you've got the desk, you've got a teacher's desk. Does the teacher have plexiglass?
No, at this time, there is no individual plexiglass for either the teacher desks or the student desks. I can tell you that is something that with our future grant funding, we are discussing the possibility for necessity of those as well.
Okay.
And just to wrap this up, we are opening up on the 16th. Transportation, if you have any issues, please call the principal by the 12th, which is this Friday. I'm saying noon, but don't wait until the last minute so we can make it. If you know your bus driver, they're going to they'll get to you by then or over the weekend. So if you haven't heard from them, it's not necessarily a problem. But if you have concerns, I think you need to call your principal first, and then the transportation department on the 12th, because like I said, Monday's a holiday, and we'll be back on our AB hybrid on Tuesday. And thank you for all your help.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bass, did you want to share anything? Staffing? Vaccine, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you for whatever the 3 extra vaccines. I'm Vanessa Bass for the Good of the Cause, HR Director. Good evening. We've been moving right along. 275 people have received their first shots. I don't have reports out on the second shot because they do not have to disclose to me because of HIPAA their second shot appointment. I just want to make that clear. So 275, 100 other people got invited on Monday. That clinic will take place on Friday. Again, I say, please do not share the link. Please keep your appointment on time, and do not take an appointment if you already had your first shot.
Let me ask you one question. We have roughly 1,100 employees.
Roughly.
So right now, 375 after this week should have their first round of vaccinations.
Let's do 275.
75 now,
Plus another
100 have been invited.
So that we should, at the end of the time, maybe 375.
I don't want to guarantee you all 100 are going to be there.
Understand, but we're working at this. The ones that have signed up, we have 600, 700 maybe that want to get the shot.
Well, they say they want to get the shot, but let me clarify that. They can get the shot at several different locations in the Upper Shore, and even though they may have committed that they wanted to get the shot initially, then I think it's 600 people. We have 696 instructional staff. That does not count the other 500 or so that work in other job groups. So when we get it back, then I know. But I have gotten the attendance sheet back from the health department, usually on Monday, and I see a lot of people did not make that appointment. So that's why I say, don't hold it up for somebody else that would really, really go. And don't give it to anybody if they're not a school employee. That would be bus drivers, custodian, CAF workers, permanent school assistants, and teachers, principals, and assistant principals.
Secretaries?
And secretaries. Thank you so much.
And the one thing I say is, like, I think you're right on the mark. It's we have a responsibility to our staff. Everybody has an idea, and I know it's the health department running this, and they check the way they're going to do it. We have no control over that except your contact with how many people are given. I'd suggest everybody take their ID with them, because then you show that you're a board educator or Queen Anne's County Public School System employee, because somebody might just ask you, and if you go there and you don't have it, we can't vaccinate everybody. We're just trying to put we've done 1A, we're in 1B. Everybody needs to cooperate.
Absolutely.
But thank you for what you're doing.
Can I ask a question, if you don't mind? Do we have any more subs
Oh,
that have been?
that was my, I got all my stuff right here for you. We have 47 day-to-day subs as of 46 when I came downstairs. One more that's been processed today. So since I came, since 4 o'clock, 4:30. So it's 47 day-to-day. That is different from long-term subs. We have a 45 total that will be doing the ADA, and we have 35 of them covered. So we only need 10 more LTSs. That's every day. The commitment would be every day, same classroom, same teacher until June 11th. Well, I think it's June 11th, to give or take a snow day or two.
LTS, what's LTS?
Long-term subs, every day.
Spaz, can I ask a quick question about subs, or para-subs, para-teaching?
Paraprofessional.
Paraprofessionals.
Thank you. Well, just because I had someone reach out, and they had also talked to a paraprofessional, and she was also a paraprofessional, and they found out that they had been attached to a school, and so they didn't get, I'm just going by what this woman told me, they did not get information about long-term sub possibilities because it showed that they were already assigned
In a position.
So the one other person she told me about said that she had to actually unenroll herself from the school and then reapply for a long-term sub. Do we know if that's happening? I mean, is there a possibility that there's more subs?
We're playing vocabulary here. So if it's a substitute, day-to-day, and they're out there, they can either apply for a day-to-day or 5-hour per. This is going to get really deep in the weeds, so you might have to have a phone conversation with me, because those are all temp positions. With 5-hour pers, it's as need and based on the funding that goes to that. Usually a Title I, special ed funded. So I don't know if that person is a 5-hour, or is it a person a day-to-day sub, or the person has a qualification to be a long-term sub. So tell that person to give me a call, and we can have a one-on-one.
Okay.
We can have a tutorial.
Thank you.
I think that's the person to call, because it's complicated how it's the tiers and set up. But it sounds like we're getting pretty close a lot closer than I thought we were going to be.
Begging, pleading, barring.
We'll keep working at it. And I'm hope once our vaccinations, aren't going as fast as we'd like, but they are moving on. And once we get back and I think we see what our system's like, I think we're going to see some real positive flow, and then we'll get back to not the old norm, but the new norm. And hopefully we'll get things rolling.
It'll be a new normal. They'll be
It'll be no norm. But it's I think it's like anything. Once you get started, first day's a little tough, and
Once they see the kids, they all go work.
And the kids will want to see each
It'll be
other.
great, just like you saw at Sudlersville.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Minnie.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Bass.
No problem.
Do we have anything else for opening of schools?
No, unless there are other questions.
Any other questions by the board?
No, not me.
Okay, we'll move on. Mrs. Towers, budget review.
Can I take my mask off?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Good evening, President Smith, Dr. Kane, board members. I think I have to get closer.
Yeah, pull it to you.
Okay. Good evening. Tonight, we're going to dive into those budget books here. I handed out before the meeting a couple pieces of information that we'll use tonight. The first being this two-pager. It's the approved budget, any transfer notices that were done through this year to give an updated budget for this current fiscal year. And how that's important is it falls through on year 5 average on the 5-year comparison. So everything in gray is going to match what is on the reconciled budget in addition to what is in your budget book for the year. So I'm going to start by opening up the budget book for fiscal year 20 because it gives good detail on each line item as we go through. So with this paper with the yellow and gray, the 5-year comparison, we're going to look at administration first. And I've highlighted anything that's over 5% or any type of variance that needs maybe further clarification. So we'll look at admin first. If we look at the first one, the variance is 208. And that 208 says human resource officer. Just want to note that it was a half-year salary in 20, so that's why it looks higher in 21, because we have a full-year salary in 21. The next one, under staff specialist, there is 130%, and that is because there's an open position with a communication specialist. The next one under salaries, under administration, that I'd like to bring your attention to would be the auto allowance. The auto allowance is at 113%, and that was because there was a half year. I'm sorry.
Get me on what page I'm on.
Oh, on the front page?
Oh, we're on this one now. Okay, gotcha.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry.
I'm jumping around. I apologize.
No, I'm there.
I have my sleeves rolled up. We're diving right in here. Okay. The auto allowance, we're at 1370 under administration. Again, the percentage is 113. And the reason why it's 113 is because in 20, there was a half-year auto allowance. So this year, it takes into account the full-year auto allowance. Another item of note under salaries and administration would be your secretary hourly. And this is for the front office staff, and doing some research on that.
And why is that? And why would we have such a huge jump in the
That
secretarial?
Before it wasn't in my understanding, before it wasn't an allocated expense, but we do have a need for a secretary out front. So we've been using hourly people instead of having someone
Right, because
full-time.
there isn't really positions because they're temporary employees, and we had 3 of them that we were rotating out at the front until we ran into COVID, and we had to make other arrangements. So it wasn't allocated at all prior, but the dollars were being spent.
Okay. So that's all I had for salaries under administration. Does anyone have any questions? And I'll keep going down in admin under contract services. If there's not any questions. The next one I have highlighted is auditing. The delta on that is 114%. The reason being is I believe it's a 5-year contract that they have now with TGM, 3 or 5, I can't remember which, but it caps out, I believe, the last year at $51,100. So just want to put that a note. They came in low, it looks like their bid, and will gradually increase. The next one is, I want to bring your attention to, is legal, and it's gone the other way at 81%. And just want to consider maybe increasing that line item. The next one, consultants. We have 31,000. This is through PenServe, the contract CFO, and JLW. The next one, license agreement. Its percentage is 153, and what this category is comprised of is board docs, EAC, and let me just talk about EAC a little bit further. EAC is something that we're in the process of getting ready to roll out to our employees. It's short for Employee Access Center, and this will allow employees to have their own login and password where they can view their pay stubs, their W-2s, and so forth. So we're in the process, the finance department's working hard on getting that rolled out and implemented.
And that contract is going to cost how much?
It is currently in there now, so that the expenses to date is running about $17,000.
Okay.
So we're short about $5,000 there.
Okay. And you don't have to get a bid on that? It's not a sole source?
It's 17,000 total.
Okay, so it doesn't need to be, okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, so that's contract services. The next one is supplies and materials, and we're still under administration. Printing and publishing is at 166.23%. The reason on some of these you'll find is that in FY20, COVID hit. So this expenses that we normally see go through there are for retirement, awards, things like that. So that is why you saw the decrease in 20 when you compare it to other years. So, but it falls in line with the 5-year average. Just wanted to note that.
And one thing I want to make, when we hear this, up 166%, it's a $10,000 item. Not that every penny doesn't count, but when I look at both those items, because when you're talking 9 to 10, that's a big jump, but it's not a 500,000 to 800,000. So some of this stuff is, very tight to the belt at some point, and then also, like you said, something happens, it can change, but the percentages look awful, but it's not as big a dollar amount as some of these other categories.
That's a very good point to make, because that percentage, it does look like a lot, but we're looking at small dollar amounts.
And I'm not belittling any small dollars, but it's not a major thing where we've all gone off $50,000 or $100,000. These are very small amounts. When you're trying to hit something postage, what happens? They raise that every 2 days.
Exactly. The next one is printing and processing supplies. Again, to what Mr. Smith was saying, the actual for fiscal year 20 was 396. The budget is 740. So it does look like a 186 percentage, but it's in line with the 5-year average. And this right here, postage was less because of COVID in March. So that's supplies under admin. The next one is other charges. Again, if we look at travel for admin, it looks like there's a big increase. However, this is because of COVID. There could be some potential savings of maybe $1,000. There's just not much in there. This would be used for the finance department and other departments hit ASBO every year in May. They have a training that we usually attend. It's a great networking. We learn a lot as far as any new laws with procurement, different things that other finance departments are doing. So that would fall in this category as well.
Well, let's be honest, everything's going by Zoom now, so
Yes, you might be.
keep that on the back burner.
Yes, definitely. And then the other item here under admin would be your professional improvements. And this right here is reserved for any professional certification. Let's say if someone in Mrs. Bass's department got their SHRM designee, then this would be where the board would pay for that out of there. And we're only talking about $2,500 on this one. So if we go down to the bottom of total of admin, you can see when we compare the budget of fiscal year 21 to the actual of 20, it's only up 1.76%. And I just wanted to mention too as well, we have that Google Drive for any questions, because I know there's a lot of numbers here, so please post any questions there, and we can review questions next week too, if you think about it tonight or this week. All right, moving right along. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope. Okay. Next one is mid-level administration. And mid-level administration is going to be your central office supervisors, the secretaries, as well as your principals and their secretarial support.
So when you have these numbers on here, is that including a step and a percent?
No. We're just looking at any variances from actual of 20, looking at budgeted for 21, and any potential savings that maybe we can see going forward and realizing any variance, because we want to make sure that when we look at setting the budget for 22, that those numbers are reflective of what we're going to see going forward.
Okay, thank you.
The item of note, and I'm going to come back to this, but I have under supervisors 105, there's a slight increase, and I have line 25. We'll come back to that. There might be some potential savings there that I want to point out, but that goes into instruction that carries forward here. The next one is secretarial, 1051. There's some potential savings here. The budget for fiscal year 21 was $150,875. If you notice, the trend over the last 2 years, in 19 and 20, was 105 and 67. There's potential for us to reclass some salaries into grants, and that's been done the past 2 years. So we want to take a look at that. It's based upon their time and effort sheet.
First, can I ask a quick question, though?
Yes.
On the first page with the administration, where we talked about the secretary hourly, what secretary, where are those secretaries, the ones that we paid hourly, where were they located? Are they here at central office?
Right. I think it's around $1,200 as far as year-to-date for fiscal year 22, and it would be anyone that we've asked to come in to sit up front for coverage.
And then where are the secretarial and clerical that we're talking about there with the 150,000? Where are they located?
They're actually located in the schools themselves.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Okay, the next one is leave payout under mid-level administration. You can see that it just depends year to year. It's hard to budget for. So that's total mid-level administration under salary. If we look in contracted services, we see under consultants, 11,180, and that's going to be your data-wise. Also, I want to bring an item of note that we took for the county, for board approval and county commissioner approval, school funds online. So this line item is actually budgeted low. It should be $20,000 more, because we need that in the schools. There's accounting software. They use school funds online. It keeps track of all their individual school accounts. It allows them to collect online payments. It lets them to send out bills to each individual student or by grade level and so forth. So that's contracted services under mid-level administration. Office supplies, again, because of COVID, and there's potential savings there to look at. Actual for fiscal year 20 was $5,946. Budgeted is $13,220.
When all these schools had to send out packets, was that charged to the school or charged to central office?
It's my understanding that the packets that were sent out did qualify for CARES funding.
So that was COVID or grant?
I believe so, but
Okay.
I would have to check on that. I could
So
make a
some
note.
of it was covered, some schools still had money in their postage, if you will, and they used that, and then they came to central office and we distributed those and make sure that they got that paid for. So it was both. It was some school, it was some central.
And some of it was COVID or grant money that was used, because, I mean, I remember we were passing those in the beginning.
yeah. Oh,
And I know we
absolutely.
tried to back it back, but I'm certainly put a big burden on some of these schools, and especially, I think, in the northern part where it's more rural and you didn't have the internet connection, people applied for more of that.
I remember in the beginning, it was everybody.
Everybody, right, so.
Yeah.
And Dr. Kane, you said at the last meeting that's been reduced.
Oh,
phenomenally.
significantly. Okay.
So, let's see. That's really all items of highlight for mid-level. You can see that the percentage increase from budget of 21 to actual was only 1.4%. When we flip to the next page, we're going to look at instruction. The first one item of note, there's a facilitator and staff specialist. You'll notice that in 21, there wasn't budgeted, and that's through an L&B grant. So that's why it's zero. It actually got transferred to a grant.
So we have it, it's just on a grant.
Correct.
How long is the grant for?
I would have to look into that.
I mean, I guess my question is it going to come and bite us into something real quick, or is it going to be something that's going to be for a couple of years?
Right. It's my understanding that it's a couple of years, but I
Okay.
will definitely find out.
I mean, I'm still interested, but, you know, grants are great until they run out.
Exactly. The other item of note that I wanted to bring to your attention is 1301 psychologist, and you can see there seems to be a huge increase from the actual of fiscal year 20 was 135,491, and you can see the budget amount was 372.91, and I wanted to let you know that's taking it from 3 psychologists to 5. That's why you see the increase there.
And a lot of that is, now they're the contract ones too, aren't they?
Correct, right. Remember, we had a lot of vacancies last year, so we were able to fill them.
With contracts, but they
Yes.
weren't.
And then the other variances you're going to see is COVID-related as far as in March, the actuals are lower in 20 than the budget in 21. So you'll see some positive variances there under the tutor, the school assistant, and so forth. Extended days not budgeted.
On 1901, teacher substitutes. I mean, that's getting to be a bigger number. I mean, it's 138%, but it's a big number when you start talking $500,000 going up to 600. Is
It
that just a
is.
trend we're in, or is it just because of, is that a COVID because teachers aren't, I mean, we haven't been in school, so we don't have substitutes. How could that be so high?
Right. We do have savings in that account. So what was budgeted in 21 was 600,000. We are seeing savings in that category. However, keep in mind though too, and we'll have to pay close attention to the trend that some teachers are not able to be in a classroom, so we'll have to have a sub in the room too. So not sure where those costs are going to trend.
Okay.
Mr. Smith, just a reminder, when we were doing the budget last May, that number was 695. And
understand.
we put it back to 600 as a placeholder just in case, because we had no idea how long COVID was going to, be with us.
Towers, can we go back to the 1804 with the assistant? What is that?
For
Up the 191?
Right, it looks like it's budgeted at 13,000 and the actual expense was 6,774. I do not know that, but I'll put that out there on the Google Drive. The next one I want to bring to your attention is 1005 supervisor at a budgeted this year at 127,384. And remember, if I told you to place a in your mind, we're going to go back to mid-level administration under 25. This is actually an admin, mid-level admin position, and we've been able to classify most of that salary, I would say up to 60%. So you'll have savings there. It's through Title I and migrant grants going into next year. And then that's instruction for salaries.
On the same page, I'm sorry.
Of course.
Because it's the first time I'm seeing this. What is extra duty? Is that when someone has a second, or they have a main position and they are doing a second position?
Right. Ms. Bass could probably elaborate more on that, but any extra duty pay? Oh,
I know, she
just,
She left. She's got snow already on the ground.
okay, I didn't want to jump in front of,
Yeah,
I didn't want to jump in front
Yes,
of
there's an
her.
update that is snowing.
Oh, okay. So extra duty is an additional after their duty hours, normally through a teacher position.
Okay. And then what about the workshop participants, 1250, because that jumped quite a bit. What is that?
Right. So I believe, and I can,
SIT is school improvement team. So there was always a stipend.
I'm actually not on that one.
Oh, the
Tammy.
workshop
I'm on
participants?
1250.
1252?
Participants.
Oh, okay.
right, it actually, if we look at the 5-year average, it's at 152,753. The budgeted amount is 149,337. It went down in 20, and my guess would be is because of COVID, they didn't have a.
Right, but what is that?
I will definitely add it to the-
Professional development, when teachers or anybody in this instructional category, when we fund them to go to professional development.
Thank you.
And when that affected one professional development day was paid by COVID.
No, this is workshops.
Workshops, okay, okay.
So
And
that's
even,
different.
and just to clarify, Dr. Keene, even with their Zoom, we're paying for workshops?
Well, it depends on what it is.
Okay.
So say, for example, if we funded teachers to participate in the Mayo conference, it was virtual, but there's still a registration fee.
Okay.
You know, it just depends on what it is.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving right along here, we're under instructions, contracted services. An item of note here would be our licensing agreements. It is actually under budgeted. It should, well, let me look at my notes. I have that highlighted here. For this current year, when I looked at 21 actual numbers, as far as where we were, it was under budget, and I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. In that category is going to be your Agile Mind, Follett, and Wonders. The next one under supplies and material, media supplies at 111%. The 5-year average is 84,365. The budget amount is 9,214, so there could be some savings realized there. The in-service supplies is budgeted at 5,100. The 5-year average is 6,110. However, it was actual numbers increased in 19 and 16. If we keep going under travel and other charges, they're basically in line with the 5-year trend because of 20 being COVID, the percentage look higher. Actually, under travel, it's actually a little bit less.
On the athletics, we're anticipating it being, even though we lost a season,
We will realize savings in '21 on that. And the question is, okay, in '22, what's the 5-year trend as far as expenses? Where do we need to be? Is there any savings that we can realize? And those are pretty much in line, the budgeted amount with the actual expenses.
And I think we got a very, the 5-year average is a good thing to go with. Last year, this budget, it's so screwed because of the timing of COVID and stuff. Some things are going to be out of whack, some things are going to be very low. So we're going to have to really, there's going to be a lot of explanations on stuff being this far off, I can see, because we're just in a different time.
Yes. So on the next page,
Just real quickly, could we, you know what, I'll put it in an email to you.
Okay.
I'll ask later, it's not a big deal.
thank you. Okay, we're going on page 5. We're finishing off instruction. And this was one that we actually, I need to bring to your attention again. This under transfers, this was for the psychologist that was contracted, that was not special ed related. This was $110,000 expense that we had this year. So we need to keep in mind when we build the budget for '22, the budget amount's 50, but we're going to have $110,000 if it holds the same as this current year and the last couple years on that line. So that's instruction. The next one is special education. Special education. Just going to go down the line here. A speech therapist, 43. There could be potential savings there on that one. I have to get with Ms. Smith. But you can see the actual for 20 is $245,872. The budget is $326,952. And it may be one of those situations where we couldn't get somebody as far as an employee and had to contract out. The next one is teacher homeward bound. Again, even though it's $15,000 budgeted for 21, the actual was $3,108, and because of COVID, it looks like that's why that wasn't used as much. The 5-year average is close to $11,000, so there might be potential savings there. A question to have for the supervisor. The next one under contracted services, consultants, 2003, just want to bring to your attention that, let's see, we transferred some salaries into the contract line because we had some consultants, and that's on the transfer notice that we have here. It was the first one dated December 9th. Salaries to contracted services for $375,000. But that's been all absorbed within that special ed budget. So it's basically moving it from salaries, bumping it down to that contracted service line. An item of note, too, would be legal services. It's budgeted for 30. The 5-year average is $15,480. This year, I would, looking at the actuals, it's more in line with the $30,000 that we're going to spend. The next item is materials of instruction. And again, the supplies were less than 20. However, the 5-year average is is right in line with what has been budgeted for that position. On the next page, we're going into transfers.
Just kind of real quick on the bottom one of that, on the other charges for travel, what is the travel for? I know it's not a lot of money, but I'm just curious as to what that went to.
Dr. Kane, do some of the therapists go on site to individual residences, or?
Yeah, there's travel involved with the therapist and speech. The ones that we contract, we do cover mileage for them.
So they're assigned to a school when they go out to that home or whatever, then that's covered with a mileage figure.
But I can get further clarification too.
Yeah, because if we're talking about the speech therapist, it seems like that whole contract would have included.
Well, we actually have a mixture of both. We have salaried and contracted services.
Right, but if the speech therapist was contracted, I thought their contract covered part of their travel.
It should, but I will double check on that.
But you also have occupational therapists, you have physical therapists, besides speech pathology. So a lot of them, if they're contracted, we pay for their mileage. Am I correct, Dr. King?
Yes. But we can get you the titles of people who are in this line.
The next one I want to bring your attention to is under transfers. The first line item is going to be the Special Ed Consortium. The actual cost in 20 was $313,983. This year, the cost was $438. Let me see. $438,983, because we had to do, if we look at transfer notice number January 6th, $310,000 to consortium and non-public placements. So that puts it into line with the actual costs, where Dr. Kane tasked the supervisor, Ms. Smith, and myself to look at the cost if we were to take all the consortium in-house as far as the services that they provide, and then would it be cheaper for us to do it that way, or is it more cost-effective for us to stay with the consortium? And through the analysis, there was quite a bit of savings to stay with the consortium, because the consortium it used to be 5 counties, now it's 4 counties that partner and share special education services. Some of the savings that are realized is through professional development. The retirement is paid through the consortium and not through us directly.
What county dropped out?
Kent.
Okay.
The next one is your non-public placements, and that increased. To question from Ms. Morissette from last time, there is 11 now currently that we have. I confirmed with Ms. Smith in non-public placement. She researched if any of them were able to graduate. There's one that's close, but needs another half year, I think, as far as total credits. And she did want to put on the radar for us that there could be a potential one coming in for fiscal year 22.
Thank you.
Well, we have no idea where they'll be going.
Exactly. All right. The next one is student support services. The variance there would be a difference in employees. There was a different person in that position in the prior years than this year, so that's why there's a variance there. Secretarial and clerical. And looking at that, this puts it on track with the actual cost for 22. There could be a little bit of savings, but only a couple thousand on there. The next one, workshop participants. You can see the actual for 22 is 73,000 or 7,300. Budgeted is 11,000. Potential savings, but could have COVID have dropped that number down too as well. Supplies, very a small number in here. Budgeted 2,000, actual was 1,410. Travel, again, the budget amount is 5,500. It's in line with the 5-year average of 5,994, and that's student services. The next one is healthcare services. Healthcare services, you'll see an increase from 20 at 20,703 to budgeted for 21, 71,534, and that's going to be your nurse coordinator. She was hired towards the end of fiscal year 20, so that's why there's small expenses there, and then the full budgeted amount for 21. The nursing at 1,460, the budget amount is 855,455. The actual last year was 7,964. So that's healthcare services, taking a look at. There's not many accounts under that category. When we dive into transportation, take a look at the one variance, the leave payout. It's hard to budget for that, but it was actually budgeted for 25,000 for 21. That may be a savings there to look at for transportation. Hopefully nobody will be leaving us.
We look at this thing, driver trainers. Is that a new position, training both our drivers and contractor?
Ms. Pullen, did you want to?
It's not a new position. There was a retirement in there, so there is someone new that has started in that position.
So if we keep going down, the actual for 2470 is 5,608,350. It's the cost of doing business with the with outsourcing for those services. Bus inspections, again, budget amount 12,000, actual 10,061. And then, let's see. Computer maintenance. We need to consider that the actual costs are running about 8,000 under contracted services, but I'm going to make a note.
That's probably doing our bus routes and stuff like that. And
I think so, but I'm going to dive
Can I ask a
further.
question? Ms. Pullen, is this our last year of contract with the bus LLC contractors?
Yes, this would be the third year.
Okay, thank you.
Right, they go through 22, yes,
To the end of 22?
to the end of 22.
Okay, thank you.
The next one is bus operations under supplies.
I'm sorry, can we go
yes.
to the bus repairs real quick?
Yes.
What would account for such a high increase in bus repairs when it seems as if they should have had a little break this year?
Because we had a lot of older buses. I'm sorry, I'm going to interject. Ms. Pullen, am I correct? There were some older buses and they needed a lot of maintenance? Thank you. Only because we had a whole presentation on that. That's why we needed it to be so high in that budget.
Thanks.
And a lot of our buses are doing special needs trips, so that was still going on more than when our schools were all virtual. So they were still running those buses because we can't provide the services in this county. I think they were still going across to the Western Shore.
Some of them were.
So, I mean, it's, those people weren't, our contractors are maybe sitting still, but our buses weren't as much.
Okay, thanks.
So as you can see, overall transportation, when we look at the budget for 21 compared to the actual in 20, as a whole, it only raised less than 0.31%. Under operations, item of note would be the maintenance contracts. The maintenance contracts, we're seeing an increase, and the increase is, we have Delaware, I'm sorry, the elevator company, what's the elevator company?
Delaware Elevator.
Delaware Elevator, Johnson Control, and BP&E Industrial. So it's my understanding that and Ms. Pullen, correct me if I'm wrong, in years past, that some of these services were not in the operation budget, but now currently reside in there.
That's correct. For a very long time, the state did all of our elevator inspections, which after the end of last year, that was an expense that we had to take on.
And this, when the state stopped theirs, they stopped every other county too.
Correct.
We weren't singled out.
The next one, vehicle, insurance to buildings. We need to take a look at adjusting this, and right now, currently budgeted in 21 is 155,000. I'm seeing actual cost of 179.
And it's not much, but why would our vehicle insurance, like I said, it's not much, but it seems like it doubled. Did we have some bad drivers this past year?
No, it was new vehicles and adding to the fleet.
Thank you.
We had a conversation about that. Anyone hit? No, no one's in an accident there. The next one is heat. You can see it's budgeted at 508. The 5-year average is 383. So there's potential savings, but really like to do more of analysis. Of course, there's going to be some savings, hopefully, in 21. However, some of these savings, we've had unexpected one-time costs that come up. So we're trying to be fiscally responsible, and any savings to go ahead and allocate to those one-time. One that comes to my mind would be the work that was done through ServPro at the middle school, and that work was absorbed by some of the savings here under the.
I remember, was it last year or something?
We
that
had a whole discussion about
did some
leaving it.
refrigerators, and I mean, you know, if some department saves money like that and we need to upgrade something or do some one-time cost to save us money, I think it's a good time to, you know, if we have ability to do it at that time.
But Mr. Smith, remember, we had a discussion about leaving the electricity and oil heat up because we hadn't had a bad winter in a number of years. So we just didn't want to take a chance in depleting that line item in case we had a bad winter.
And with COVID, Ms. Pullen's educating me on the heating systems and electricity, and I think we have to have a higher temperature, Ms. Pullen, or
No, it's actually, we are bringing on our systems to circulate air 2 hours before the buildings are open, so it's 2 hours before we have done it in the past, but we're also leaving it on longer in the evening to make sure that we're getting full circulation. So we are going to see some increase in costs for that as we start to do this. Our systems are already transitioning over to that. We'll be seeing that increase soon.
Because of COVID, we want to bring more fresh air and turn it, whatever. If we're doing 2 times a day, we're going to do it 3 or 4. So that's just going to cost us more money at that time. Is that a COVID expense for a grant?
We haven't to this point. We haven't looked at it, and the line items for the new grants that we are looking at, I'm not sure that something like that would be covered, but we can take a look.
Yeah, just.
There's 15 uses for the new money, and energy wasn't one of them, but.
Gotta ask.
Go figure.
I'm sure we'll end up spending it.
You don't need electricity.
Sit in the dark, open the windows, keep your coat on.
Right, just leave the windows open.
The last one I want to bring your attention to here under operations would be equipment. Budgeted for 21 was 20,000, and to my knowledge, that this was for the electrostatic machines, so there might be savings next year because if there is a need for that, then they definitely would qualify for the ESSER 2 grants. So there's potential savings there. under maintenance, I want to bring your attention to, there is budgeted for fiscal year #21 under construction manager. As you know, Ms. Pullen has been doing dual role, so we'll recognize savings in '21, but we still do have that position open. The next one, contracted services, maintenance contracts. Let me see my notes on that one. 69. This basically adjusts to actual. So in actual fiscal year '20, there was $95,204 for maintenance of contracts. There's an increase of 109, and that falls suit to the actual that we're seeing in '21. Vehicle operations, a very small amount, but the percentage is 108. The actual for fiscal year 2020 was $22,567. The budget amount was $24,500. Again, with auto expense as well. So overall, when we look at fiscal year '21, compared to a budgeted amount compared to actual in '20, it's less than 1% increase in the total under that category. And the last one here is fixed charges. So if we go line by line, under retirement, 5801, actual for 2020 was 2.5 million. The 5-year average is 2.5. The budget amount is 3.1. There's possible savings there that we could bring into 22. Social Security, the actual for 20 was 4.4. 5-year average 4.2. The budget amount 4.7.
Workman's comp insurance, did our actuaries go up?
Right, we are seeing a lot of claims. In fact, statewide, in addition to the claims, we're actually seeing fraudulent claims too, that we go line by line each time we get the workers' comp bill and dispute any employees that are not ours on there, and we're actually seeing it statewide. So anytime that we see that, we're contacting them to get those removed from that report, and we short pay it, we don't pay it the full amount.
Same thing with the unemployment insurance.
Yes.
I've noticed that there's been a lot of fraud. I've had
Yes.
as well. So I've had 3 already try to claim on me that never worked for us. So I'm sure that you've had quite a few of those too.
Yes. Yes. So if we look at different, let me go back up. Health insurance, it's fallen in suit. Actual was 11.2, budgeted was 11.7. There may be savings there from what Mark Lynn was saying. Our partners with Bolton Partners is that he's not projecting to see an increase for next year. He's going to get back to us in another couple weeks, but he's projecting that it stays where it is on there.
Does that include the retirees' health insurance as well?
Yes.
And just, we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
I'll ask a question later.
Okay. So that pretty much, fixed charges, there's going to be some savings that we could possibly bring into 22 on that, depending upon any increases that we have to account for Social Security and Medicare that'll be associated if there's any increases.
Powers, what's the blood bank?
The blood bank?
I mean, there's no money attached, but
No.
what is that?
I think years ago, and I wish Ms. Bass was here, I think they could, boy, I don't even know. I'm going to have to ask that one.
If it's like the state, if you donate blood, you get so many times a year, you get a day of leave. I don't know if that's,
Okay,
if the schools ever did anything like that.
right. But to your point, there hasn't been anything in there, so we need to actually inactivate that. Thank you. So in looking at the 5-year average, we can tell what's been budgeted in 21 compared to the prior actual numbers and see if there's any potential savings anywhere where there's adjustments that need to be made when we continue to build fiscal year 22 budget.
Now, you had us replace the expenses. Are we keeping in our book the revenue comparison?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
What we were thinking for next week would be the capital budget, then taking a look at staffing, where we are as far as open positions, if there's any savings potentially there, where we are staffing in the school buildings, that we can take a look at those numbers by school, by grade, by student enrolled.
And when I went through my book, I guess the principals have put in what they requested for additional staff in each. I mean, I saw some of them in there.
Correct.
What they've put in for each school that they would like to see.
That was part of the first presentation.
Thank you. That's for me.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Towers.
Thank you.
Action items, 3-01. We've had a presentation on Edward contract. Is there any other, we've asked for discussion, if people were here for that. Is there any other discussion on that? Do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to accept the exact path by Admentum. A fiscal impact of $87,249. Budget source is the FY 2020 operating budget and part of the FY 2020 capital budget.
If I could, I'm so sorry. We had to have a change to that yellow sheet. We are looking at ESSER funds for this, ESSER 1 funds. So this would,
That's
yes, and that needs to be updated on there.
what this contract will begin on July the 1st, 2021, continue any programs that will still be running from 2021 to 22 school year. Fiscal impact, 87,249. Budget no. Budget source, ESSER fund number 1 funds.
Yes,
Title
and
one,
that
whatever.
needed to be updated. I'm sorry about that.
So it'll be coming from that. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Carries. Our next thing, we've discussed the clay target, and that is going to be brought back with a better, not a better, some more information on thing, and we'll get some clarifications on how that's going to be done.
I make a motion to table the clay target team for further discussion.
Second.
Okay, discussion. That could be tabled to next week?
To whenever the information is available.
Okay, so caller said she'd get back to us. Hopefully, next week we'll put it on. If you don't, then we'll get it. We'll be in touch with you to find out where we can make how we're going to make that decision. Clarify that, because my understanding is we have till March 22nd.
22nd.
So we need to act on this in the next couple meetings or something. Okay.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Okay, our future work sessions will be February the 17th, and we will have another one on February the 24th, and our regular school board meeting will be March the 3rd. Our schools will do our hybrid program next Tuesday. We've discussed that, and like I think everybody said, be safe, please. If your children or students have any kind of issues, as Michelle said, anything, pink eye, strep throat, cold, let's err on the side of caution so we can hopefully get rolling next week and then move on, as we've discussed with Mark and some other members, trying to get this even open farther if we can in the future. Do I have any other discussions? Good for this thing? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
7 o'clock. Wow. 2 questions.